The Rex Osprey XRP ETF is incoming. I'll give you everything you need to know and what to expect over the next few days. We have a ton of other information here about CME now expanding its futures into XRP. Got some clips here and information from Paul Barron. We're going to take a look at some other stuff towards the end to do with Bitcoin. Bitcoin going to 400 to 500 trillion dollar market cap. Where would that leave XRP if possible? So Eleanor Terrett says the Rex Osprey XRP ETF launched this week. To my understanding, it's on a spot product in a 40 Act wrapper that holds real XRP plus cash, treasuries, and some derivatives, basically a spot ETF with extras and more regulated than traditional spot products. And so Nate Rossi, the ETF insider, says first ETF offering spot XRP exposure to set to launch this week. Rex Osprey using clever regulatory end around via 40 Act structure to bring this to market will be another good litmus test for the 33rd spot XRP ETF demand. Futures-based XRP ETFs are already nearing $1 billion in assets. I wanted to get some additional information. The Rex Osprey XRP ETF is the first US listed exchange traded fund designed to offer regulated spot exposure to XRP under the Investment Company Act of 1940. The ETF will hold real XRP along with cash, US treasuries, and derivatives, providing institutional investor direct price exposure to XRP with stricter regulatory oversight than traditional spot crypto products. The fund will trade under a ticker XRPR on the CBOE BZX exchange. It is registered under the 40 Act, which means it must abide by independent oversight, detailed reporting, and asset diversification requirements not required by standard spot ETFs. The ETF invests at least 80% of its assets into XRP and related instruments, going through a Cayman Islands subsidiary to maintain compliance with US tax and regulatory standards. It supplements pure XRP holdings by also investing in other global XRP ETFs and spot crypto derivatives with the aim to replace one-to-one price movements of XRP as closely as possible, subject to fund fees and operating expenses. There's some additional context here if you want to go ahead and read it. I did think this was interesting. Principal risks include market volatility, regulatory uncertainty, especially if XRP is ever judged a security by US courts. I thought that was strange, right? We're going to we're going to have another lawsuit. Like, I don't know. I didn't quite understand that. Like, there's basically saying that this is up for discussion. Like, it could possibly happen. I don't think the SEC do they really want to go through another 3-4 year embarrassment? I just didn't understand that part. Risk for centralization, as Ripple Labs still holds a large share, right? So these are just concerns about the ETF, but I do think this is going to show us how popular this is going to be. And we'll see if Rex Osprey gets a surge of new clients to get this. Also, you're going to see Doge and XRP ETFs this week. Should be pretty exciting. Here is a clip here from All In Crypto, Phil Kwok and Dom Kwok, founders of EZA, and how they're working closely with Ripple to bring developers to the XRP ledger. Let's play it.
Partner with the best ones, typically major layer ones that we also believe in personally. And ultimately, what we do is we take people from a high-level introduction, 101, sort of, what is the XRP ledger? Why was it created back in the day? And ultimately show them how to actually deploy apps on the blockchain. Obviously, the XRP ledger doesn't have smart contracts, but for different challenges that we have, we actually allow people to write the smart contracts, deploy them all through the app. So you get a complete end-to-end experience of how to actually build right from your smartphone, which is a complete game changer, actually. And we and our team, our engineering team, actually pioneered the first ever mobile smart contract deployments in history. So definitely check out the app if you're in the audience, don't have it yet. I know many of you do, and pretty much.
Look at this, 97,000 developers completed in-app challenges. 97,000 developers. This is the future of development for the XRP ledger happening right in front of our eyes. The EVM sidechain is opening up all kinds of new possibilities, and I think people are underestimating the impact this is truly going to have.
Pretty much everyone at the hackathon had it. So yeah, if you haven't yet, definitely check out the app because that's a great place to learn about blockchain. I think one of the things that Phil and I found when we first got into the space is it's not immediately apparent why you'd want to build on different blockchains. Why would you choose the XRP ledger over Solana? Why would you choose, Stellar over Sui or Aptos, etc.? There's so many cool pieces of tech, but ultimately, why do you choose one over the other? And that's why we created the app. You just swipe across like you would on a dating app, and you can find your perfect match of the blockchains you want to work with. So highly recommend it for anyone. And with respect to the XRP Ledger challenges, they've been hugely successful. So as you can see, the numbers we have up there are absolutely huge. We have over 150,000 people who have started the XRP Ledger challenges already in the app, and a large majority of those have gone right through and actually completed them. So really cool numbers, really, really big impact that we're having, and all the devs that we have are from really cool institutions all over the world, like Harvard, Stanford, Oxford, Cambridge, etc. So this is a bit of an introduction to the UI, how it all works. You can see that it's super simple. Many people who actually use the app and love it call it Duolingo for blockchain. We are doing what Duolingo did for learning languages for the blockchain. So we're making it super easy for anyone to get started.
I wonder why Jake didn't interview these guys, man. These guys seem really interesting. I thought that would have been a really cool interview. CME Group to launch options on XRP futures, the rise of digital asset treasuries and other access vehicles for crypto has only accelerated the need for institutional hedging tools on Solana and XRP. So here's just a little information. I put this into Perplexity just to make this a little bit more simple for us to get the best context. Institutional Adoption and Exposure, CME, the world's largest derivatives marketplace and XRP futures suite launched in May 2025, has seen rapid adoption with over 370,000 contracts, $16.2 billion in notional value traded. Offering options on these futures means institutional clients can now deploy more nuanced trading strategies, manage risk, and hedge exposure in regulated environments. This positions XRP alongside flagship assets like Bitcoin, Ethereum in terms of institutional grade derivatives. Talks about liquidity and market maturity. The launch is expected to drive higher liquidity, trading volumes, and robust price discovery, benefiting both institutional and retail markets. Micro XRP futures expand access, allowing more market participants to trade and hedge smaller position sizes. High trading volumes and open interest signals deepening confidence among sophisticated investors and improve market efficiency. Lots of really cool things happening over at CME. It was one of their fastest growing products ever to $1 billion. Love to hear it. Paul Barron says 25 basis points is pretty much locked in. By the time you watch this video, we will probably have the news on this. I agree with him. I've been saying this for quite some time. 25 basis points is probably the right move. 50 might be over the top. We'll see what the Fed decides to do, but I do think this is going to push markets up as people, get cheaper access to money. This will help credit card bills, credit card interest rates. It'll help home loans. It'll help auto loans, personal loans. This is going to, people are really squeezed right now because of everything else that's going on, and lowering rates could definitely help it out. But remember, as we're lowering rates and we're spending more money than we did last year, we're going to be looking at higher inflation, especially if we start printing money to infinity. So just be aware. These things are going and coming in 2026. Be prepared. It says bigger picture, Bitwise files for an AVAX ETF. Pantera loading up on Sol, 1 billion. XRP Spot launching ETF this week. XRPR. Gemini launch IPO Gemi. Sailor lobbying Bitcoin week in DC. And BlackRock loading up on Bitcoin and ETH. Still mega bullish. Here is Jack Mallers. Without Jack, I don't know if we'd have a whole lot to talk about on the Bitcoin side, but here he is taking, telling people what he believes is coming for Bitcoin. Let me have him tell you.
You see the price of Bitcoin heading?
Higher.
How much higher?
A lot higher. My general framework from the highest level is human beings collectively, we own about $900 trillion worth of stuff. That's equities, the things behind us, real estate, precious metals, fine art, all of the things that we own. Half of that we're using as a savings account. We're owning the portfolio of companies or the art or the house to actually try and persist wealth into the future. I think Bitcoin's going after that market. It's going after a market of $400 to $500 trillion worth, and right now it's $2.5 trillion. So I think in purchasing power terms, Bitcoin can go up 100 to 200 times more from here.
All right, so we know
100 to 200 times more from here. Just to give you some additional context, he's talking about 400 to 500 trillion. This is just looking at a 400 to 500 trillion market cap. If he said 200 times where it is right now, this is the numbers you'd be kind of looking at, right? XRP, if it represented 5% of the crypto market or 10% of the crypto market, you'd be looking at $1,000 to $4,000 XRP if Bitcoin did hit these prices. So rising tide does bring all boats up. Here is all of the math and breakdown if you are interested in understanding this a little bit better. Right now, XRP represents about 4.5% of the entire crypto market. And I think as more institutions are able to get access to these products, as more retail comes in, XRP could see that number go from 5, 8, even 10% of the entire crypto market as a lot of cryptocurrencies die because, not every cryptocurrency is created equally. And we are going to get some of this like .com boom, bust cycle where a lot of companies are going to go under. They just don't have the technology or the funding or the community to keep building. XRP could take market share. And if it does, you could see a massive 3 to 4 digit price for XRP in the future. Love to hear it. Digital Asset Investor has been posting some information. I do want to talk to you about this. He was replying to Phil Kwok from EZA, the video I showed you earlier on. This video right here, this is the gentleman. Basically saying, Phil Kwok said, sometimes I guess Phil was talking about people borrowing against their XRP. Digital Asset Investor says it is very dangerous to borrow against your XRP until we have more price stability, which comes with a much more mature crypto market. Be careful out there. Know the risks before diving in. For now, most important thing is to hold your XRP safely, in my opinion. And he does point out the Celsius business model. Before you can try to earn yield on your XRP or borrow against it, make sure you know exactly how the yield is being generated and exactly what your borrowing risks are. The industry is still young and we don't have regulations yet. I've seen this movie before many times, not financial advice, but your own, know your own risk and know what you hold. XRP being kept safe is my number one priority until we have regulations. This is really good advice. Talk with a financial advisor before you do any of this. Make sure you understand what the risks are, because if in fact you get another Celsius on your hands, you could lose all your XRP that you've done and invested into this. All right, guys, be safe out there. Thank you so much. I will be back home next week. I appreciate you bearing with me through my vacation here. I hope you're enjoying the content. Aloha.